Hello everyone, I'm Arindam Ghosh. As you all know, I was teaching you Christina Georgina Rossiti's Goblin Market, a text prescribed in the Bardhavan University syllabus, undergraduate syllabus of English Honours, 4th semester. It is specifically assigned in the core course 10, that is 19th century British literature. And this is my third video lecture on Christina Georgina Rossiti's Goblin Market. In the first two video lectures, I've taught you about I've introduced you to the Victorian literature, about the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901. I've given you certain historical and social background of the period, some of the important features and characteristics of the period, such as the conflict between religion and science, the changing worldviews, publication of the paradigm changing books like for example Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species, a huge growth in the British Empire as well as in the population, and the poor conditions of the working class people, the effect of the Industrial Revolution. I've also talked about the Victorian morality, how moral absolutism becomes a norm of fashion in the Victorian period, widespread cultivation of an outward appearance of dignity and restraint, together with very serious debates about exactly how morality should be implemented, becomes a buzzword of the day. I've also talked about with you about the growth of the British Empire, some of the common themes of the Victorian period, and of course features of the Victorian poetry. I've introduced you to the major-most figures of the Victorian literature and specifically Victorian poetry like Lord Alfred Tennyson, Robert Browning, Matthew Arnold, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, one of the founders of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, secret society of the artists. Again, I have introduced the school of the Pre-Raphaelite because it's a very important school for our context of the poem, because Christina Georgina Rossiti is herself associated with this kind of movement with her own brother, and Christina Georgina Rossiti is actually the younger sister of Dante Gabriel Rossetti. So I've talked about what is Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, how it becomes a movement of reaction against the Raphaelite mode of painting, the Raphaelite mode of artificial painting, and how the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood actually sought a return to the abundant detail and the intense colors and complex compositions of the Quattrocento Italian art from 1400 to 1499, the period before the Mannerist introduction of the Mannerist adaptation of painting by artists like Raphael and Michelangelo. So this is actually a movement which rejects corrupting influence of Raphael and his successors on the academic teaching of art, and hence the name Pre-Raphaelite. And in particular, the group actually objected to the influence of Sir Joshua Reynolds, the founder of the English Royal Academy of Arts. So their main aim and objectives was to have genuine ideas to express, to study nature very attentively, to defy all forms of conventions of art, truth to nature, and of course medievalism is another very important feature of this particular mode of poetry. And of course they gave much more emphasis to the flesh, to the body, দেহকে, মানুষের জৈবিক চাহিদাকে অনেক বেশি গুরুত্ব দিয়েছিল rather than the depiction of the soul, আত্মার থেকে, কারণ আত্মাকে তো describe করা যায় না at least আর্টের মাধ্যমে। এবার আমি I have also given you introduction on Christina Georgina Rossiti, a famous Victorian woman poet from 1830 to 1894, born in a very well-educated Italian-English family. Her father was a political exile, poet and translator. She grows in close companion with her brother. She herself remained unmarried throughout her whole life, and particularly she was associated with the Church Penitentiary movement, which offered a home to the religious instruction to the so-called Victorian fallen women. We will see that how the concept of the fallen women will become a very important theme in the context of the Goblin market. এই যে পতিতা নারী তার যে সো কল্ড একটা কনসেপ্ট সেটা কেমন ভাবে গবলিন মার্কেটে উঠে এসেছে সেটা আমরা জানবো। I've given you a brief overview of the poem. How Goblin Market is actually a poem of the adventures of the two sisters. It also talks about and emphasizes a form of sisterhood, the power of the sisterhood. How these two sisters, Laura and the Lizzie, who are tempted with fruit by the Goblin merchants, they ultimately resist it, and how they become successful in resisting these goblins, and how they have saved themselves from becoming a fallen woman. So these are some of the characters of the poem. Laura, Lizzie, Jenny, a reference to the character of a so-called fallen woman who is deceased when the story begins, and how she fall prey into the hands of the goblin. She just appears in a brief reference to the poem, and of course the goblins. I discussed with you the sources of the poem, the meter and the rhyme, and of course the very important concept of the fallen women. And I have told you that how Goblin Market is both a proto-feminist text, as well as it also affiliates to some of the patriarchal ideas of that time. It's quite usual because it's a poem published in 1862. And I have discussed also with you regarding the status of the women in the 19th century, how women can be either a governess or a working aid or a housewife. There were no other options left for a women, because they were banned from the universities, banned from the colleges, and there were no options for a woman except depending on the patriarchal machinery. Because you have to remember that there were no rights of the property for the women in the Victorian period. No rights of the property. A woman will not be able to inherit his property. She will not be able to inherit his property, and that was the legal system of the day. So marriage, the institution of the marriage, and a form of monetary help and marriage and money and property. So these material conditions becomes very important for the women. Financial security becomes very important for the women because there were no options left for the women. So today, from this lecture onwards, I will discuss with you regarding the textual analysis of Goblin Market. So let us begin the textual analysis of Goblin Market. So here begins the text. Morning and evening, maids heard the goblins cry, "Come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy." Apples and quinces, lemons and oranges, plump unpicked cherries, melons and raspberries, bloom-down-cheeked peaches, sweet-headed mulberries, wild freeborn cranberries, crab apples, dewberries, pineapples, blackberries, apricots, strawberries, all ripe together in summer weather. So we are being introduced with a world of the goblins, where in day in and day out, the maids, the spinsters, who are unmarried women, they can hear the cry of the goblins. So the author doesn't mention that whether the married women or other people or men can hear the cry of the goblins. It has not been mentioned. So these unmarried women can hear the cry of the goblins, and the cry of the goblins are very seductive in nature. You can hear it. Come buy, come buy. Now these words, come buy and come buy, will be actually a recurrent phrase throughout the entire text. That the goblins are essentially tries to seduce the unmarried women will be very much evidence from these words, come buy, come buy. And a sort of commercialization and commodification and objectification of the women's body is very much associated with the word buy. Buying is a word that denotes a sort of transaction, a sort of financial transaction through which something can be bought. এই যে ক্রয় ক্ষমতা কেনা, তার মধ্যেই একটা মানিটারি এক্সচেঞ্জ ইনভলভড। এরপরেই এই শব্দটার মাধ্যমেই লেখক যেন একটা কমার্শিয়ালাইজেশন অ্যান্ড অবজেক্টিফিকেশন অফ দ্য ফিমেল বডি করতে চেয়েছেন, সেটা বা করতে চাইছে ভিক্টোরিয়ান পেট্রিয়ার্কাল সোসাইটি, এটা কেন তিনি খুব পরিষ্কারভাবে এই শব্দ প্রয়োগের মাধ্যমে দেখাচ্ছেন। From the next line onwards, from line 5 up to around line 15 almost, we are introduced with a world of fruits, exotic fruits. And these fruits like melons, raspberries, though some of the fruits are common, but there are also some uncommon fruits, like for example the crab apples, the dewberries, or like the swat-headed mulberries. So these actually impose us to an oriental exotica. এমন একটা পৃথিবী যেখানে এই ধরনের ফল তৈরি হয়, অলমোস্ট একটা অ্যারেবিয়ান ওয়ার্ল্ড অ্যান্ড মিডল ইস্টের একটা জায়গা, কারণ এখানে বলেছে দ্যাট অল রাইট টুগেদার ইন সামার ওয়েদার। অ্যান্ড উই নো ইট ভেরি ওয়েল দ্যাট ইন ইংল্যান্ড, স্পেশালি ইন ব্রিটিশ ওয়েদার, it's not always possible to grow these fruits, because summer weather actually means a country where the season of the summer is predominant, and in England the season of the summer is not predominant. ফলে একটা ওরিয়েন্টাল এক্সোটিক পৃথিবীতে তৈরি এই ধরনের ফল নিয়ে গবলিনরা আসে, অ্যান্ড দে ট্রাই টু সিডিউস দ্য উইমেন। এই ধরনের একটা ইমেজারি বিল্ড করার চেষ্টা করেছেন লেখিকা, একেবারে কবিতার শুরুতেই এটা আমরা বলতে পারি। So each morning and evening young women hear the cry of the goblin men, who encourage the women to come buy their fruits, and they actually sell a variety of exotic luscious sounding fruits. Luscious means delicious. So in summer weather, morns that pass by, fair eves that fly, come by, come by. So in summer weather, where the morns that pass by, যখন সকাল চলে যায়, fair eves that fly, that is really suggestive of the flying of the time, come by, they come by. As I have already said, that this phrase of come by is recurrent. Our grapes fresh from the vine, pomegranates full and fine, dates and sharp bullushes, rare pears and green gages, damsons and bilberries, test them and try. So these goblin men are requesting women to test these foods, and you can see, for example, they are trying to impose a sort of freshness to the fruit. They are saying that our grapes fresh from the vine, they are almost coming from the vine, and pomegranates full and fine. So they are, from the very beginning of the text, they are trying to sell their fruit by promoting the qualities of the fruit and requesting the women to test and try. Carrots and gooseberries, bright fire like barberries, figs to fill your mouth, citrons from the south, and sweet to tongue and sound to eye, come by, come by. So again they are talking about their fruits, how their fruits have they have collected their fruits from various parts of the world, and the fruit is sweet to the tongue, mishti, জিভের কাছে মিষ্টি, and sound to the eye, এবং চোখের দৃষ্টির দিক থেকে বলা যেতে পারে ইটস মানে দেখলেই এই ফল খেতে ইচ্ছা করবে, come by, come by. So in a very evocative and seductive language, the goblins are trying to seduce these unmarried women to their fruits. If you see this interface, you can see that this is the text of the poem, this is the summary, and here are some of the critical comments, my observations. So I will read the text and analyze the text in my terms. Please do see the summary in your own ways and the critical comments. I will also describe you all the critical commentaries, but please have a look into this section of the summary and critical comments. I will read the poem and analyze it in my own language. So what we can derive from this passage, that the goblins come from, where the goblins come from and why they are targeting the women, is never explained throughout the entire text. The way the goblins describe their food, as I've said already, is very much pointedly sexual and suggestive of the ripeness and voluptuousness, and suggesting the youthfulness and vigorousness of the women. The goblins' evocative language is intended to seduce the women by encouraging them to imagine the pleasures of eating their fruit. So the character of the goblins remains very mysterious from the very beginning. Who the goblins are, we don't know. Perhaps they can be those people, those villainous people, those circles of the Victorian society who seduces women and drag them to the fallen state. Perhaps they are the people who runs various businesses, like the business of the prostitutes and others. We don't know, we don't really know who these goblins are, but they are monstrous dwarf-like creatures from the European fairy tale, and Christina Georgina Rossetti is actually using this device of the goblins as an allegory, as a symbol, to suggest perhaps some sort of community of men who are responsible for the disasters of the women. এইভাবে হয়তো গবলিনদেরকে দেখাতে চেয়েছেন যে এই যে দ্য ফলেন উইমেন, পতিতা নারীর যে কনসেপ্ট ভিক্টোরিয়ান ওয়ার্ল্ডে ছিল, ভিক্টোরিয়ান পৃথিবীতে ছিল, পৃথিবী বললাম কারণ ভিক্টোরিয়ান ইংল্যান্ড শুধুমাত্র নয়, ভারতবর্ষ ছিল, গোটা পৃথিবীতেই ছিল। তো সেই কনসেপ্টকে মানে এই নারীদের এই কন্ডিশনের জন্য যারা রেসপন্সিবল, সেই ধরনের পুরুষদেরকে যারা সিডিউস করে নারীদের, হয়তো এখানে এই পার্টিকুলার টেক্সটে ক্রিস্টিনা জর্জিনা রসেটি বলতে চেয়েছেন, মেনশন করতে চেয়েছেন। আমি বারবার বলছি যে there runs a great contradiction in the text of Christina Georgina Rossetti of the Goblin Market, because being herself a woman, Christina Georgina Rossetti is always trying to establish the rights of the women. She is talking about the pangs and the pain of the women, but at the same time there is a deep affiliation to the patriarchy. ফলে এই যে পুরুষতন্ত্রের যে একটা নিজস্ব পলিটিক্স, যে উইমেনদেরকে এই সময় বেরোতে নেই, এই সময় গেলে তুমি ফলেন উইমেন হয়ে যাবে, এই যে তোমার বাউন্ডারি, বারবারই লিজি লরাকে বলবে যে এই বাউন্ডারির মধ্যে তুমি যাবে না, এই ডোমেস্টিক স্পেসের বাইরে তুমি যাবে না, গেলে তোমাকে সিরিয়াস করবে গবলিন মেনরা। বাট এই যে রেটরিকগুলো, দিস রেটরিক্স আর এসেনশিয়ালি পেট্রিয়ার্কাল, কারণ আমরা আমাদের প্রত্যেক দিনের জীবনেই এই রেটরিকগুলো এনকাউন্টার করি, যে রাত্রি 8টার পরে মহিলাদের বাড়ির বাইরে বেরোতে নেই, এই করতে নেই, ওই করতে নেই, তাহলে তুমি ফলেন উইমেন হয়ে যাবে। তো these rhetorics are essentially patriarchal, but to remember the year of the publication of the poem is 1862. ফলে a deep affiliation towards patriarchy is actually quite possible, because সেই সময় দাঁড়িয়ে এর বাইরে চিন্তা করাটাও হয়তো একটা খুবই জাইগান্টিক টাস্ক হতো একজন কনভেনশনাল পাওয়ারফুল ভিক্টোরিয়ান সোসাইটিতে বড় হওয়া একটা ওমেনের পক্ষে, সেটা তো খুবই ডিফিকাল্ট একটা টাস্ক হতো। So let us go to the next section of the poem. Evening by evening among the brookside rushes, Laura bowed her head to hear Lizzie veiled her blushes, crouching close together in the cooling weather, with clasping arms and cautioning lips, with tingling cheeks and fingertips. So here we can describe that the poet is describing a scene of the two young sisters. One is Laura, another is Lizzie. They always go to the brook side. Brook means a small river. Choto nodi ke brook bole. যেখানে Laura always bowed her head to hear Lizzie veiled the blushes. So Lizzie is always very careful. She is veiling her blushes. সে তার হাসি, তার লজ্জা পাওয়াটাকে ভেল করছে, তার যে ঘোমটা বা তার যে কস্টিউম সেটা দিয়ে ঢাকার চেষ্টা করছে। বাট Laura from the very inception of the poem is falling prey to the seductions of the or the seductive callings of the goblins. প্রথম থেকেই সে যে prone to seduction সেটা কিন্তু আমাদের অথর বারবার মনে করিয়ে দিচ্ছেন। And crouching close together in the cooling weather, with clasping arms and cautioning lips, with tingling cheeks and fingertips. So clasping arms means it actually suggests a form of hesitation on the part of both the sisters. So lie close, Laura said, picking up her golden head. This particular phrase is very important, golden head, because it is suggestive of the hair of the Laura, the golden head. So later we will see in the poem that when Laura will try to buy the fruit by selling her hair, and the goblins will try to buy that golden hair, this particular imagery of the hair as a mode of financial transaction will become very much important later on. যখন এই চুল দিয়ে লরা ওই ফলগুলোকে কিনতে যাবে। So we must not look at goblin men. We must not buy their fruits. Who knows upon what soil they feed their hungry, thirsty roots. So Laura said, Lauraই প্রথমবার বললো, we must not look at the goblin men. We shouldn't look into the goblin men, because we must not buy their fruits. I mean, আমরা তাদের ফ্রুট ফল অবশ্যই যেন না কিনি, কারণ আমরা জানি না ইন হুইচ সয়েল, কোন মাটিতে তারা তাদের সেই ফল, তার সেই ফ্রুটটাকে বড় করেছে। We really don't know. So Laura urges Lizzie to lie close and warns her that they must not look at the goblin men and must not buy their fruits, because they do not know in what foreign regions the fruit has grown. Yet, hearing the goblin's call, Laura pricks up her golden head. So Lauraই warn করছে প্রথমবার, কিন্তু Lauraই will fall prey first to the goblin men. Come by, hear again the cry of the goblin men, call the goblins hobbling down the glen. Glen is a narrow valley, especially available in Scotland and Ireland. It's almost like a valley, a dale, একটা ছোট্ট উপত্যকা যার মধ্যে এই ব্রুক রয়েছে, নদী রয়েছে, যেটা স্কটল্যান্ড এবং আয়ারল্যান্ডে খুব ভীষণভাবে দেখা যায়, গ্লেন এরিয়াস বলা হয়। So up to this stage of the poem, it is quite unclear that whether the goblins are dangerous or not, but both the sisters seem very instinctively to recognize the goblins pose a form of sexual threat. And Rossetti's language in this particular passage emphasizes the sisters' bodily response to the goblins, and it is suggestive of that they are very much fearful, but at the same time they are also very much curious, and sexual curiosity was believed by many Victorians to be dangerous to women. আমি আগেই বলেছি, the poem is steeped with patriarchal imageries, and various forms of sexual curiosity has been prohibited in the Victorian times. এবং সেই যে prohibition of the sexual curiosity and other forms of curiousness, এটা এই কবিতার মধ্যেও কেমনভাবে স্কিপড ইনসাইট, কেমনভাবে রয়েছে এই কবিতার মধ্যে, সেটা আমরা একটু পড়লেই বুঝতে পারবো। তো এই হচ্ছে up to the line 50 most probably. We are moving into the next section of the poem. So, oh, cried Lizzie, Laura, Laura, you should not peep at goblin men. So a form of curiosity is always there in the mind of the Laura, and perhaps she is trying to peep into the goblin men when they are hobbling down. And Lizzie, with her cautious voice, said, Laura, you should not peep at the goblin men. Lizzie covered up her eyes, covered close, lest they should look, and Laura reared her glossy head and whispered like the restless brook. So Laura becomes like a restless brook, এমন একটা নদী যেটা বর্ষার সময় যাকে আর নিয়ন্ত্রণ করা যায় না, রেস্টলেস, যেটা নিয়ন্ত্রণহীন হয়ে পড়ে, কন্ট্রোললেস হয়ে পড়ে, নিয়ন্ত্রণের বাইরে চলে যায়, সেরকম একটা নদীর মতো হয়ে পড়লো লরা। Look Lizzie, down the glen tramp little men, down the glen through the narrow valley, there appears the tramp like little women. Tramp means vagabond. Dwelling from one places down to another. ভবঘুরের মতো ঘুরে বেড়াচ্ছে একটা জায়গা থেকে আর একটা জায়গা। এভাবেই গবলিনরা ঘুরে বেড়ায়। One hauls a basket, one bears a plate, one lugs a golden dish of many pounds weight. How fair the vine must grow. How fair the vine must grow, whose grapes are so luscious. How warm the wind must blow through those fruit bushes. So one goblin is carrying a basket, one carrying a plate, one a golden dish of many pounds weight, যেটার অনেক ভার রয়েছে, এবং তারা বলতে থাকলো যে কেমন করে কোন ওয়েদারে এই ফ্রুটটা গ্রো করেছে এবং কেমন why their grapes, আঙুর কেন লাসিয়াস, why they are juicy and delicious, and how warm the wind must blow through these fruit bushes. So this constant allusion to the warm weather I think is to remind the reader that they are reading this poem in the contemporary British environment, contemporary British atmosphere. কারণ সেই সময়ের ইংল্যান্ডে আমরা জানি ওয়েদার অত্যন্ত হার্শ ছিল, আইসি উইন্ড ব্লোজ, সবসময়ই একটা নির্দিষ্ট সময় অনুযায়ী বরফ পড়ছে, বৃষ্টি হচ্ছে, এরকম একটা কোল্ড ওয়েদারে ওরিয়েন্টাল এক্সটিকা একটা এরকম একটা ফ্রুটের ডেসক্রিপশন যেটা মিডল ইস্টের বা ভারতবর্ষ এরকম একটা জায়গাতে গ্রো করছে, তার ডেসক্রিপশন ভিক্টোরিয়ান উইমেনদেরকে অ্যাট্রাক্ট করবেই। এইরকম একটা অ্যাটমসফিয়ার তৈরি করার চেষ্টা করা হয়েছে গোটা পোয়েম জুড়ে। সো দ্য এক্সটিক নেচার অফ দ্য ফ্রুট হুইচ initially frightens Laura now actually excites her, and these plays into the European fears of the foreigners, particularly those from the colonized nations, as being primitive, sinful and overly sexual. And we don't know really that these goblins are the representation of the colonized people, the people from the colonial world. We don't know whether the goblins have been portrayed from the lens of the colonial ruler, যে এরা আফ্রিকান বা মিডল ইস্টের মানুষ বা ভারতীয়, এদেরকে এরকমভাবে ডিসক্রাইব করা হচ্ছে কিনা। কারণ রেশিয়াল প্রেজুডিস was a very rampant practice in the contemporary Victorian England, and by giving into temptation and satisfying her sexual curiosity, Laura is actually transgressing the boundaries of the acceptable behavior for women at the Victorian time. As I was saying you that there was a boundary to the as I was saying that there was a boundary to the ideal conception of the Victorian womanhood, যে কতটা যেতে পারবে তার একটা নির্দিষ্ট সীমা রয়েছে এই ভিক্টোরিয়ান পিরিয়ডে, তার বেশি যেতে পারবে না, এখনো হয়তো রয়েছে আমাদের ভারতীয় সমাজে বা অন্যান্য সমাজে। সো লরা ইজ ট্রান্সগ্রেসিং দ্যাট বাউন্ডারি, লরা এই বাউন্ডারিটা ছেড়ে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে। সো গবলিন মার্কেট কিন্তু এই বারবার রিমাইন্ড করবো যে এই বাউন্ডারিটা ছেড়ে একটা আইডিয়াল ওমেনের বেরোনো উচিত নয়। কেন উচিত নয় তার কথা বারবার এই পার্টিকুলার টেক্সটটা বলার চেষ্টা করবে। মুভিং ইনটু দ্য নেক্সট সেকশন অফ দ্য পোয়েম। No, said Lizzie, no, no. Their offers should not charm us. Their evil gifts would harm us. She thrust a dimpled finger in each ear, shut eyes and ran. Curious Laura chose to linger. So Lizzie said from the very beginning, no, I will not hear to these melodious song or fall prey to the evil gifts, because these gifts will essentially harm us. And she thrust a dimpled finger. She puts the finger into her ears, because the singing, the melodious singing, the voices of the goblins will be essentially seductive to them. So each ear and shut eyes and ran. So Lizzie ran, but curious Laura chose to linger. Laura decide করলো যে আরো সে খানিকক্ষণ থেকে যাবে। Wondering at each merchant man who had a cat's face. So here from begins a very important imagery, the animal imagery. The goblins were described in terms of being an animal but not a human. এর ফলে এই যে imposing a sort of anthropomorphic qualities to these men, sorry, not anthropomorphic, but by using the various form of zoological imageries, imposing this form of describing a human being in terms of an animal, actually reduced these men to the level of the animal. কেন প্রথম থেকেই জান্তব দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি দিয়ে বারবার লেখিকা এই ধরনের গবলিন মেনদের দেখার চেষ্টা করছেন, তারা কেন মানুষ নয়, তারা কেন জন্তু বিশেষ। One had a cat's face, one whisked tail, একজনের ল্যাডো রয়েছে, one tramped at a rat's pace, another is being compared to a rat. এবং আমরা দেখবো সেটা that in many illustrations, contemporary Victorian and modern illustrations, these goblin fruit merchants have been painted almost like animals, তাদেরকে জন্তুদের মতো করেই সেই সময়কার ভিক্টোরিয়ান পিরিয়ডে তাদেরকে আঁকা হয়েছে, as if they are not human being, they are animal. So this is actually another picture. I will show you that they are almost like animal. This is a rat's face, another is that of the cat. So again, this is another painting that the golden hair of Laura is being touched by these animals. Okay, so here is another example, the rat, cat and others. Okay, these are luscious looking fruits. So from the very beginning, these goblin people have been compared with animals and as if they are not human beings from the very beginning of the text. So yes, coming back to the text, one had a cat's face, one whisked tail, one tramped at a rat's pace, and one crawled like a snail. একজন শামুকের মতো, snail is শামুকের মতো ধীর গতিতে crawl করছে. One like a wombat, prowled, obtuse and furry. Another is almost like a bat, বাদুড়ের মতো. One like a rattle, tumbled, hurry scurry. So you can see these goblin men are compared to animals, and she heard a voice like voice of doves cooling all together. They sounded kind and full of loves in the pleasant weather. So in the pleasant weather of the brookside glen, in the narrow valley beside the brook, these animals also appear very pleasant initially. At least প্রথম দিকে তাদেরকে অত্যন্ত প্লেজেন্ট, একজন ভালো মানুষ বলে, ভালো অ্যানিমাল, কারণ অ্যানিমাল ইমেজারি থ্রু দিয়েই বলা হচ্ছে, অ্যাটলিস্ট সাম গুড অ্যানিমালস হিসেবে তারা অ্যাপিয়ার করছে। কিন্তু এই ইনিশিয়াল অ্যাপিয়ারেন্স থেকে বেরিয়ে দে উইল ট্রান্সফর্ম দেমসেলফ into beasts and into really violent animals who will harm these two sisters. So প্রথম থেকে লিজি যেরকম is not only just fearful of the goblins, but she is very much aware about the consequences of eating the fruit. এই ফলটা খেলে কি হতে পারে সে ব্যাপারে লিজি কিন্তু প্রথম থেকে খুবই সচেতন, but Laura is not. So the fear on the part of the Lizzie is so strong that Lizzie abandons her even own sister. Some of the animals in this particular text as mentioned may suggest that the goblins intend to take young women for their prey, and it is very interesting that William Holman Hunt's famous painting of a fallen woman known as The Awakening Conscience, published in 1853. 1853 সালে William Holman Hunt, as I have already mentioned, he is a Pre-Raphaelite member. তার একটা বিখ্যাত পেন্টিং বেরোয়, The Awakening Conscience. I will show you the painting. It actually contains the image of a cat playing with a bird before killing it, and that particular image actually reveals to us the nature of the painting. যে পেইন্টিং আমরা একটু পরে দেখবো, সেখানে দেখবো a description of or an image or visual of a Victorian household where a woman is sitting into the lap of a man. In the superficial outward appearance, it may appear that the woman is the wife of the man, but through various imageries, William Holman Hunt will show us that she is a mistress and not a woman. She is a fallen Victorian woman because এই যে ইমেজটার কথা বললাম, image of a cat playing with a bird before killing it, that actually symbolizes the predatory behavior of men who seduce women and then discard them. তো এই যে ব্যাপারটা, এটা প্রথম থেকেই predatory behavior of the men প্রথম থেকেই প্রেজেন্ট ছিল। So the Awakening Conscience is a text published in the year 1853. It's an oil on canvas painting by the English artist William Holman Hunt, one of the founders of the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, which depicts a young woman rising from her position in the lap of a man and gazing transfixed out of the window of the room, that she is very much transfixed, thinking about something. এই যে পার্টিকুলার ইমেজটা আমাদেরকে একটা ভিক্টোরিয়ান হাউস হোল্ড ইমিডিয়েটলি মনে করায়, যে a man trying to seduce a woman. But if we look very closely into the painting, that here is an imagery of a cat who is eating a bird. Let us zoom in into the picture. I don't know whether I can do it or not, but let us. A cat is trying to kill a bird, and other imageries into this particular room also. For example, yes, you can see also the very gaudy description of the landscape of the house, piano and other things, color of the wall. These actually suggest not a domestic Victorian household, but rather a household which belongs to perhaps a mistress, especially the floor and other descriptions. So initially the painting appears to depict a momentary disagreement between the husband and the wife, but the title and the host of symbols, the title is Awakening Conscience. Perhaps the conscience has been risen in the mind of the mistress. Again, this is another very patriarchal painting. অত্যন্ত পুরুষতন্ত্রের প্রতীক একটা এই ছবিটা, কিন্তু কারণ মানে মানে কনসিয়েন্স অ্যাজ ইফ যেন বিলং করতে পারে না টু আ ফলেন উইমেন, এইভাবে দেখানো হয়েছে। কিন্তু various host of symbols within the painting actually make it clear that this is a mistress and a lover. The woman's clasped hands provide a focal point, and the position of a left hand emphasizes the absence of a wedding ring. All the rings are on every other finger, and around the room are dotted reminders of her kept status and her wasted life. And the cat beneath the table toying with a bird, the clock concealed under the glass, which actually suggests the concealment of the identity of the woman, a tapestry which hangs unfinished on the piano, so the threads which lie unraveled on the floor. So these actually suggestive of a status of a mistress. So this is a famous painting by William Holman Hunt, a great propounder of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, one of the exponents of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. This is his painting about fallen women. So perhaps these animal imageries actually reminds us also of the Goblin market. Perhaps this things actually influences Goblin market, because Goblin market published around 1862, and this painting painted around 1853, 10 years almost before the publication of the poem. Moving into the next section of the poem, Laura stretched her gleaming neck like a rush embedded swan. So the neck of the Laura, the gleaming neck, the long neck of the Laura is being compared like a rush embedded swan. So in our own Indian tradition, long neck actually symbolizes a divine beauty, a woman of divinity. সরস্বতী, লক্ষ্মী, এদের প্রত্যেকেরই গলা বিরাট বড়। আমাদের সঞ্জয় মুখার্জি, one of the greatest professors on film studies, he is really a great teacher. তিনি তার লেকচারে একবার আমার মনে আছে আমাদের কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে একটা সেমিনারে উনি বলেছিলেন, এবং অনেক জায়গাতেই উনি বলেছেন about the significance of the long neck of the women as portrayed in Ritwik Ghatak's মেঘে ঢাকা তারা, যেখানে যখন সুপ্রিয়ার দিকে ক্যামেরা জুম ইন করছে, তার যে বিরাট বড় একটা গলার দিকে ফোকাস করছে ক্যামেরা, সেটা সাজেস্টিভ করছে হার স্টেটাস অ্যাজ অলমোস্ট অ্যাজ আ ডিভাইন ওম্যান, অলমোস্ট আ পার্ট অফ আওয়ার হিন্দু মাইথোলজি। তো এরকমভাবে এই লং নেক অনেক ট্র্যাডিশনে কিন্তু সিম্বলাইজ করে অনেক জায়গাতেই অ্যাবাউট দ্য ডিভাইন ফিচার্স অফ দ্য ওম্যান। Or perhaps in the, I don't know really that in the European tradition what it signifies. It can signify seductivity, it can signify sexuality of the women, but she is being compared like a rush embedded swan. Leda and the swan এর গল্প তোমরা পড়েছো, যেখানে Zeus in the form of a swan is actually raping Leda. So here constantly the image of the Laura, the representation of the Laura is in highly sexualized terms. We can see that like a rush embedded swan, like a lily from the bake, like a moonlit poplar branch, like a vessel at the launch when its last restraint is gone. So Laura stretches her gleaming neck towards the goblin men like a swan, or a vessel at the launch when its last restraint is gone. Almost he is being compared with a vessel, একটা ছোট্ট মতো বোট, যেটা লাস্ট রেস্ট্রেন্ট যখন সে একটা নদীর জলের মধ্যে দোলে, তার যে লাস্ট রেস্ট্রেন্ট যে ক্ষমতা রেজিস্ট করার, সেটা এখানে চলে গেছে। And meanwhile the goblins are tramping backwards up the glen, and when its last restraint is gone, backwards up the mossy glen turned and trooped the goblin men with their shrill repeated cry, come by, come by. A recurrent imagery of come by is occurring throughout the entire poem, and backwards of the mossy glen, when the goblin make turn, they are also repeating this word, come by, come by. When they reached where Laura was, they stood stock still upon the moss, leering at each other. Brother with queer brother signaling each other. Brother with sly brother, one set his basket down, one reared his plate. Here, perhaps Rossetti is suggesting an evil brotherhood. Just like she is also suggesting of a powerful sisterhood is very important in order to protect one woman from the greedy look of other men. যেরকমভাবে লোভী দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি, একটা পুরুষের লোভী দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি থেকে বাঁচাবার জন্য একটা sisterhood খুবই প্রয়োজন। Here also she is talking about another perhaps evil brotherhood. One set his basket down, one reared his plate. They are preparing to serve the fruit to the woman. One began to weave a crown of tendrils, leaves and rough nuts. Preparing a crown actually reminds us of the Dionysus, of the Bacchus, the god of intoxication, the god of wine, the god of indiscipline and rapture. So men sell not such in any town. অন্য কোনো জায়গাতে এরকম ভাবে পুরুষেরা বিক্রি করে না। One heaved the golden weight of dish and fruit to offer her. Come by, was still their cry. So they are offering their fruit. Initially they will offer their fruit completely free, but they will charge the price of the fruit later on. So initially they are just seductive. So this is a moment of seduction. This is the moment when Laura loses her self-restraint, which previously made her cautious of the goblin men, but right now she will lose all forms of restraint. It is presented as a point of no return, and the goblins' slyness suggests that they intend to trick or deceive Laura in some way, while the word leer, meaning to look at in an unpleasant and lascivious way, it emphasizes that the trick has a sexual element. So right now on this stage of the poem, Laura is actually losing her self-restraint. So she is being attracted to the fruit which is being served by the goblin men. So Laura stared but did not star. It to move Kolona. Lord Lola. Longed but had no money. She had no money. The whisk-tailed merchant bade her taste in tones as smooth as honey. Their tone is as smooth as honey, প্রায় মধুর মতোই মিষ্টি গলার স্বর তাদের. The cat-faced purred, the rat-faced spoke a word of welcome, and the snail-paced even was heard. Even the snail-paced, যাকে অনেকটা শামুকের মতো দেখতে, তার গলাও শোনা গেল. And the voice of the rat almost is like full of honey. So one parrot voiced and jolly cried, "Pretty goblin, steal for pretty Polly." One whistled like a bird. So they are attracting, they are seducing Laura by producing various kinds of sounds, various forms of sounds. বিভিন্ন শব্দ দিয়ে বিভিন্ন ধরনের ধ্বনি তৈরি করে তারা লরাকে তাদের দিকে অ্যাট্রাক্ট করার চেষ্টা করছে. But sweet tooth Laura spoke in haste. Good folk, I have no coin to take where to purloin. I have no copper in my purse. I have no silver either. I have no copper, no silver, no actually money in my purse. And all my gold is on the furs that shakes in windy weather above the rusty heather. So all my gold is on the furs. আমার সমস্ত ধরনের গোল্ড, আমার যা সম্পত্তি, ধন সম্পত্তি is on the furs. মানে আমার কোনো গোল্ড অ্যাকচুয়ালি নেই. Furs is actually a flower, a golden looking flower. I will show you what is furs. So it suggests that these women have grown in close proximity with the nature. তারা প্রকৃতিতেই বড় হয়েছে এবং প্রকৃতি, এই ন্যাচারাল রিসোর্সেসই তাদের সম্পত্তি. এটা ছাড়া তাদের কোনো আলাদা করে কোনো গোল্ড নেই. দ্যাট শেকস ইন উইন্ডি ওয়েদার. উইন্ডি ওয়েদারে যে ফার্স, যে ফুল যেটা দোলে, ইয়েলো কালার্ড ফ্লাওয়ার, সেটাই আমার সম্পত্তি. তাই দিয়েই আমি নিজেকে সাজাই, তাই দিয়েই আমার এই ন্যাচারাল রিসোর্সেস দিয়েই আমার সংসার চলে. সো ইউ হ্যাভ much gold upon your head. So these words are very cautionary, are very fearful, because the goblin men are targeting the golden hair of the Laura. You have much gold upon your head, and perhaps hair, as we have seen, that hair in Rape of the Lock also, it's actually suggestive of the consent of the women, that women is consenting to the proposal of the men. Here in Victorian or in the Enlightenment context is also suggestive of the virginity of the women. So it is suggestive here that perhaps these goblin men are or wanted to take the virginity of the Laura. So, and they said, "You have much gold upon your head." They answered altogether, "Buy from us with a golden curl." So from the very beginning, they are actually talking in terms of the financial transaction. They will never give the fruit free. Buy this fruit with a golden curl, with your hair. She clipped a precious golden lock. The precious golden lock, সেটাকে অল্প করে কেটে ক্লিপ দিয়ে, clipped a precious golden lock, dropped a tear more rare than pearl. So perhaps the poet here is comparing the tear of the woman, the tear of Laura, with the rarity of a pearl. So এইভাবে কম্পেয়ার করছে একটা ওম্যানের ভেরিয়াস পার্টস অফ দ্য বডিলি ফ্লুইডস, সেটার ইম্পর্টেন্স, তার গুরুত্ব সঙ্গে পার্লের তুলনা করছেন. এগেন দিস ইজ ভেরি পেট্রিয়ার্কাল. আমি বলবো যে এটা পেট্রিয়ার্কাল টার্মসেই জর্জিনা রসেটি ইজ ডিসক্রাইবিং a woman, but again in the context of the 1862, a goblin menদের একটা animal imagery through they describe করে, she is showing them as seducers. So the golden hair is here appearing as an adequate payment, and these goblin men are urge her to clip one of her curls to offer in exchange of the fruit. So Laura agrees and clips the desired lock of her hair, dropping a tear more rare than pearl. So these are the furs. Okay, so these are the furs. If you are ZD, Laura explains that she cannot pay because all her gold is on the furs. So another name for gods, a yellow floral shrub. The statement emphasizes Laura's proximity and relationship with the natural world, which like other sources of the wealth keeps her fed and sustained. So it is also suggestive of her rural innocence and inexperience. So this shows that she is absolutely innocent as nature. এবং সে পরিষ্কারই বলছে তার কোনো গোল্ড নেই, তার কোনো আলাদা এরকম ট্রেজার্ড ট্রোভ নেই, আলাদা কোনো বড় ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল রিসোর্সেস তার নেই, সে কেবলমাত্র এই ফার্স দিয়ে তার সংসার চালায়। শি ইজ ইনএক্সপিরিয়েন্স অ্যান্ড it actually suggests of her rural innocence. So refusing to accept Laura's reasons for not taking the fruit, the goblins persuade her to cut a lock of her hair to offer in exchange. And in doing so, the goblins symbolically transform Laura's hair into a commodity with commercial value. They are transforming Laura's hair as well as other body parts of the Laura into a commodity with commercial value. নারীকে পণ্যতে পরিণত করবে। The utter objectification and commodification of the women is occurring here, and she symbolically sells herself for the forbidden fruit. সেই forbidden fruit, almost like Eve যেরকমভাবে অ্যাপলটাকে পারতে বলেছিল, অ্যাডামকে বলেছিল যে প্লিজ গ্র্যাব দ্যাট অ্যাপল and so that they can decolonize themselves from God. So here in this poem, the imageries of the Christ is being constantly used in case of the Lizzie, and we can also see the imagery of Eve is being used for Laura, je seducted hocche, and she symbolically sells herself for the forbidden fruit, and this act strongly aligns her with the fallen woman in the Victorian culture. So Laura is constantly being equated with the fallen women. এবং আমরা দেখবো এই পোয়েমের পরবর্তীকালে যে ফলেন উইমেনকেও রেস্টোর করার পসিবিলিটি আছে কিনা বা থাকার কথা হয়তো আমাদেরকে ক্রিস্টিনা জর্জিনা রসেটি বলার চেষ্টা করছেন। সো ইন দিস থার্ড ভিডিও লেকচার I will end my third video lecture here at this point. In the next section we'll move on with the textual analysis of the poem. Thank you so much.